Thank you, and welcome to the Peaky Blinders auditions. Before I go any further, can I just check that people can hear me at the back? Great. I asked that question one time and a fellow at the front said, I can hear you just fine, but I'm happy to swap with somebody who can't. So I thought, tough crowd. I'm Nick Shackleton-Jones. I've been around far too long. I sort of started my career actually as a psychology lecturer. That was my kind of first proper job. And then after that, I went to some big organizations. I went to the BBC. I went to BP. I went to PA Consulting. I set up and led a learning innovation service line there for a number of years. And I published a book called How People Learn. And then I went to Deloitte through the years of the pandemic and was chief learning officer there at Deloitte. And then I set up my own thing. And now I help lots of organizations to innovate in lots of different ways in terms of improving their programs, their approach to technology or whatever. One thing I do want to make clear though, I do have other clothes. I mean, this is not my only, in case you get the wrong impression about me. But as I said, my first job was a psychology lecturer. So if you wouldn't mind doing something for me, could you, using your hands, show me how much sleep you got? So if you could stand up and if you only got a little bit of sleep like this, if you got a lot of sleep like this, using your hands, how much sleep did you get last night? So if you could get to your feet and then just show me using your hands, that would be fantastic. Let's have a look around the room. That's amazing. Cool. So, standing ovation for my session. My wife is going to be so impressed. Thank you, guys. That's just brilliant. So, I'm going to be talking about kind of AI and learning, and I want to be really practical, not just sort of vague. The problem with talking about that, though, is it's a topic which exists at the intersection between two things that almost nobody understands. Almost nobody understands AI, almost nobody understands learning. So what I'm going to do is talk very briefly about learning and how that really works, because it will illuminate what we can then do with the technology once we understand it. The problem is that new technology applied to old thinking is not progress. And I see a lot of that in the industry. Maybe 95% of what I see is new technology being applied to old thinking. And I just think, well, it's not really progress. So let's have a look. But before I do that, I want to ask you a question. What do you remember from school? So you've got 2 minutes. Just want you to chat on your tables, and I want to get some answers from the tables. And when I talk about school, I want to talk about teenage years, so as a secondary school. What are some of the things that you remember from your school days? Yep. So your time starts now. 2 minutes.
They have leather straps. Yeah?
What do you remember?
Priests with leather straps.
Priests with leather straps. You're just going back a bit. What do you remember?
The experience, not the content.
The experience, not what you actually learn.
What kind of experiences?
Well, bad experiences mainly.
Went to a very religious school. More obsessed about wearing uniform than actually the learning itself. Yeah.
Cool. Thank you.
Honours the whole way.
What do you remember?
Doing quite well in maths after I dropped down to a pass level.
Ah.
Yeah. That's it.
Cool. So was it that sense of accomplishment or?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, feeling very proud of myself. Yeah.
Yeah. Thank you. What do you remember?
We were talking about indoor and outdoor shoes.
Indoor and outdoor shoes. Oh, I like that. I love that. Yeah, I love that. Okay. Okay, so we could spend all day talking about that. It's fascinating what I've heard. I heard Indoor and outdoor shoes. People remember? Yeah, indoor and outdoor shoes. Uniform, school uniform. Somebody feeling very proud because they did a lot better in maths, so pride. I heard somebody else talk about priests and straps. So that leaves a lasting impression, I'm sure. Yes, you know who you are. And school dinners, that was talked about as well. What do all of those things have in common, though? What do all those things have in common? Yeah, they were. Well, you see, they were the learning. They were nothing to do with the content. They were all to do. Somebody said it on one of the tables. It was all to do with the experiences. It was all to do with the experiences. So, working in education, I began to realize that education and learning are completely different things. Education is this kind of strange ritual that we developed 100 years ago, mainly just because we wanted to keep the kids out of factories. And so we put them all together in a room and we had somebody read to them, and we called that education. And that was fine, except people started thinking that that was learning, but actually learning is something completely different. Learning is about the reactions that you have to the experiences around you. All of the things that you mentioned are things, a sense of pride, being afraid, uniform, are things that have some sort of emotional reaction. And learning is driven by our reactions to what happens around us. If you and a colleague are on a train journey and you are fascinated by architecture and they are fascinated by plants, you have the same experience, but you remember completely different things. And that's because you react to different things. You care about architecture, you care about plants. So not only is it about our reactions, we have different reactions to different things. But one of the things that I learned about learning is if you really understand learning properly, you can create an experience that will stay with somebody for a lifetime. So for this next part, I'm gonna need a volunteer. Anybody? Any volunteers? No, I'm kidding. So imagine that you're at a conference talking about learning and education, and midway through, some bizarre chap, for no particular reason, produces a bag of marshmallows and starts hurling them around the room in this kind of slightly haphazard way, right? And yeah, marshmallows, yes, very good, yeah. These are, thank you very much, Maeve. Maeve bought me the marshmallows. And Louise convinced me I should do this, even though I thought it was a bit frivolous. Whoa, yeah. Oh, we bounced that one. Any other show of hands? Marshmallow that way, yeah. Any okay? So this may seem frivolous, but actually, if you understood this, you know all you need to know about learning, which is why is this the thing that you're going to remember 2 years from now? Do you remember that conference? Do you remember the chap talked about learning? No. How much do you remember from the A? Do you remember the guy with the marshmallows? Yeah, the guy with the marshmallows. I'd be prepared to bet that this is what you remember. How can I be so confident? It's because it's the kind of thing that creates a reaction, and reactions are what sticks. So I'm painting a very different picture of learning than the one that you're used to. And I'm going to explain how that helps us. So this is the model that I introduced in How People Learn. First, general theory of learning. And it says we don't actually remember anything that happens to us. Crazy idea, right? But it's consistent with everything that we know cognitively about learning, which is confabulatory, it's reconstructive. What we store are our reactions to things we experience, and we use those reactions to reconstruct events. We have very subtle reactions. We have different reactions to different hairstyles, different reactions to different colors. So how does this help us? It sounds a bit academic. How does this help us with the problems at hand? Well, in every case, if we're doing learning, we're in one of two conditions. We're either pushing content. This is really important to many of you in the room, because a lot of what you're doing is pushing content because it's compliance. Businesses look to us for regulatory training. That's a big part of the industry. And there, what we're trying to do is we're trying to make somebody care where they don't already care. We're making somebody have a reaction to data breaches or reputational risk or whatever it is. And to do that, we have to create some kind of experience or simulation. I was actually talking to Maeve actually just last night about one of your proudest developments was a Sherlock Holmes style game that actually really challenged people. And intuitively, we kind of get this. If you want somebody to care about safety or DEI, just throwing more information at them isn't going to change them. You have to create some kind of experience that has an impact. But oftentimes, people really care about something. If your washing machine breaks down, what do you do? If your washing machine breaks down, Google it, YouTube it. You pull information. New starters in organizations, new grads in consultancies care deeply about fitting in, and they will aggressively pull information. Did you know that that's why TikTok is popular? You may not have thought of TikTok as a learning platform, but it is the definitive learning platform. The reason it's so addictive is people are pulling content about stuff they care about. Teenagers are learning aggressively about what's trendy, about what's funny, about how to fit in, about what values to hold. We don't think it's education because it doesn't look like education, but it is learning. It's just raw learning. Through the pandemic, their education didn't actually suffer. And to some extent, they were able to connect with their peers and learn a lot more. So we're always working on this push-pull spectrum with what we do. We're either trying to make people care about something, in which case we're challenging them, we're creating stories and simulations, or we're just giving them resources. Resources, not courses, with the mantra I sort of introduced. So when we know people already care about stuff, just give them useful stuff. Stuff that you might find on YouTube or whatever. Now, a lot of instructors intuitively get this. You see it in their work. This is Professor Lewin. Look at how he brings a topic that people don't care about, mathematics, to life.
I want you to be extremely quiet because this is no joke. If I don't succeed in giving it 0 speed, then this will be my last lecture. I will close my eyes. I don't want to see this. So please be very quiet. I almost didn't sleep all night. 3, 2, 1, 0.
Okay. And of course, video like that goes viral. Viral videos are the ones that have emotion, that get a reaction. And look, you may not buy this. Many of you have been working in learning as I have for many years. So let me ask you these questions. How would you do these things? Find your way in a strange city, help your daughter with her homework, find a restaurant in a new area, learn about somebody you'll be meeting, choose a good movie. How would you do those sorts of things? So Google, yeah? Sorry, ask a stranger, that's great. Gentleman over here. Yeah, use your phone. There's 2 bonus points, by the way, that nobody's got yet. What are the 2 bonus points? So you've said Google, YouTube, ask a stranger, phone. Sorry, somebody said Chat GPT. Yay, bingo, that's one of the bonus points. You're down with the kids. Chat GPT. TripAdvisor's good. What's the other bonus point? Yes, TikTok, yeah, TikTok. Increasingly, people, I can't see anybody that I think, hands up anyone who's on TikTok. Yeah? So increasingly people are turning to TikTok. It used to be Facebook, and they're now looking up how to get stuff done on TikTok. What's interesting about that question is I've asked it many times, and nobody ever says classroom or e-learning. Isn't that funny? People like classroom, but it's pretty ineffective content-wise. People dislike e-learning. It's pretty ineffective in terms of memory, but it's cheaper. So what do we do instead? Well, we can build experiences, formal and or informal experiences that challenge people, or we can build resources, useful stuff that just helps people. This is generally digital. This is generally in person, but it doesn't have to be that way. How does this work at work? Well, basically, this is learning at work. We overcomplicate it. It's people's challenges. That's their learning pathway. The stuff they have to do on the job pushes them a direction of resources, which might be a colleague or something on the intranet, which they then pull in order to meet the challenges. That is how learning works at work. It really is that simple. So there's really 2 things we can do. We can either create new challenges for people, or we can create new resources to help them with a job. So let's talk a little bit about AI, and then I'll talk about how these 2 things come together. So will AI take my job? Yes. So AI takes all the jobs. If you don't believe me, read Martin Ford's book, Rise of the Robots. I sort of laugh now. I think life is either a comedy or a tragedy, depending on if you're a thinker or a feeler. I never remember which way around it is. But I now look back on 10 years of going to conferences where we were assured by everybody up to the World Economic Forum that we didn't need to worry about automation because it was only going to take the routine jobs. Remember that? Remember that narrative? It was only going to take the working, let's say, working class jobs, but all of us would be fine with our creative, those sorts of jobs, intellectual jobs. What were the first things to go? Copywriting, art. All this art is generated by Midjourney. What else went? Oh, programming. Yeah. And I was chatting with Nigel over lunch, and he said Harvard Business Review published a thing that said, yeah, we were surprised. Oh, great. You were surprised. Right. Fantastic. So AI will take all the jobs. How quickly? Well, it sort of depends, really. So if there's a high commercial opportunity and there's an ease of conversion, then pretty much now. So these sorts of things, copywriting, legal, translation, recruitment, chat, all of those are falling. If there's a high commercial opportunity but difficult ease of translation, so medical, transport, military, relationships, movie making, then it'll take a little bit longer. If there isn't really a commercial opportunity, for example, solving crossword puzzles, I don't know, might take a bit longer. And there is some time zone down here. So will hybrid save us? No, absolutely not. If people take the hybrid line, if you want a model for hybrid, look at GPS in your car. I'm old enough to remember when you had to learn how to use a map, right? And then GPS came along. What did GPS do? It transformed and disrupted the industry. It created a space for Uber. For example, Uber could not exist without GPS. So it transformed businesses' resourcing models, which is interesting. But it massively reduced wages. You see, if you were a professional with the knowledge, if you were a cab driver in London, you were highly skilled, you had to know every road. Well, GPS just stripped that away. So what hybrid does is it means we have lower paid, less kind of performance-oriented jobs, and we turn it into gig workers. And of course, as most of you appreciate, that's a stepping stone to autonomous vehicles. So it's only an interim position at best, but it makes perfect sense for organizations because you can see what Uber did. It created a space in the market because of a new opportunity around the resourcing model. Where do you hide then? Where do you hide from AI? Handmade pottery. So handmade pottery is I guess, a metaphor for people will still sometimes pay for an experience or something that is less perfect and more expensive if it's human. So people might pay for a handmade meal, to go to a restaurant where there are real people cooking, not robots. You'll all be able to download a virtual coach. You can already, frankly. But having a real coach, well, that's a kind of a unique, different thing. Some of you in this room will have designer handbags, and there's still something about having a handmade, handcrafted thing. And that will affect us in learning, because some of what we do is at the unique end. So let's talk quickly about AI and learning, how those two things will interact then. A lot of my work then is either in those two spaces. So creating experiences like this is experience for leaders, teaching them about the dangers of micromanagement. Now stop and think for a second. How does AI impact that? You see, you thought you knew about AI and education because you thought that learning was all about taking bits of content and summarizing it and stuffing it in modules. But now I'm saying learning is all about experiences. You're not so sure how AI impacts that. How does AI impact Disneyland? How does AI impact Disneyland? We don't know. We're not sure because Disneyland's an experience. And learning is really all about the experiences that we have. This was an 8-week experience where people met customers, they had to hire new people. It's not so easy when you think of learning in those terms. That's why we're here today. From a content perspective, all of us in the room get that the same content we're having today could be done digitally, but we want to be here in the room for the experience. We will pay more for the experience. So it's not quite as straightforward, I think, as people imagine when you think about that kind of learning. What about resources? So this was a very successful resource. It's got 1 million hits, this. It was the most popular site anywhere in BP at the time. And it was basically just answers, useful stuff, answers to all the questions that New Starts had. Got 1 million hits. None of that was mandatory. It was all just digital stuff that helped you with the job, which is different to modules. So that was very successful. And then we went on to do lots of similar things. This is for a big bank, you can probably guess which. All the stuff that you need as a new leader to help you to do the job. So AI might start to impact that. Let's have a think about that. So people are kind of freaked out. I keep seeing people talk about AI and they'll show a video like this. So I'm going to show you this video and then we can talk about it. So,
all right, just bear with me for a second. It's not going to make sense yet, but what I'm about to show you is crazy. The clip you're about to see, I never filmed it at all. It does not exist in real life. Just watch. The video you're watching of me right now is completely AI generated. It sounds like me, looks like me, and it's even the same background I use for my videos. AI is getting pretty scary, and soon it'll be hard to tell what's real and what's not.
So yeah, you can show a video like that and you think, oh, what does that do for education? Well, actually not much really. Students are already not showing up for lectures. If I said to you, well, instead of having a lecturer, you could just kind of type a document and it would generate a video version. Who wants to watch that? We had a speaker this morning make the same point. So what? Who wants to watch a video of somebody, I don't care who it is, I don't care if it's Clint Eastwood, reading a document to me. I'd rather just read the document, especially if I want an answer quickly. So I don't think we should be sort of scared by that if we understand learning. That doesn't really make a difference. So there's a lot of bad thinking that I see in terms of AI thinking, and the bad thinking tends to revolve around, can we dump the content digitally using AI? Well, yeah, sure you can, but if it wasn't working before, how is it going to work now? Can we create virtual instructors? Yeah, but Eric Mazur showed that that whole instructional format was massively ineffective anyway. So how's that going to help? Can we churn out lots of e-learning modules using AI? Sure. But people aren't consuming them today. How is that going to make anything any better? So this is bad AI thinking. So what does good AI thinking look like? Well, bad AI thinking is basically a salesperson saying, look, I can sell you a robotic rain dancer that will replace your real human rain dancing team. Is that a good proposition? No. On the one hand, yes, it's cheaper. But on the other hand, no, because the activity isn't actually helping anyone. It's not really doing anything. I want to really bring this into focus. So this is what I see in a lot of organizations. This is what happened when I joined Deloitte. Deloitte had created a whole engine, a machine around creating pathways. And the idea was that somebody in the business would approach you and say, could we have some learning on this topic? And you would say, yeah, we'll create a pathway. And the pathway would basically shuffle the LinkedIn learning modules. And it was like, job done. So I said, wow, who's doing the pathways? There were thousands of them. Proliferation, a cottage industry in creating pathways because it was easy to do. And we looked at the data. Nobody's doing the pathways. Right, okay. So we shut it down. So what you could imagine applying AI very easily to this model. Oh, you've got a capability. The AI will pull together a bunch of modules based on standard or scraped content, shuffle them into a pathway. Does it help anybody? No. Helps nobody at all. It's cheap, easy to do, won't help anybody. What would help people is if you actually understood their jobs, exactly what they're trying to do. So they might, for example, have to prepare a pitch deck and then gave them some resources, but resources aren't modules. It's not the word for modules. So like a pitch template would be handy, but that's going to be different for every organization, isn't it? Or a good example of a successful pitch and a bad pitch deck that's analysed in terms of what made this good and what made it bad. And top 10 mistakes that people tend to make when pitching. That would be a good checklist to have. So you can begin to see the outlines of the opportunity for AI, but it's not what you thought. It's not over here, which is easy to do, but waste of time. It's over here, performance support and performance guidance. So let's talk a little bit about good AI thinking. So let's bring this framework into focus. So experiences. Can AI provide experiences? Maybe. It's a way off though. Maybe you can plug your AI into some VR headset. When I worked at BP, one of the experiences we had virtually was people had to escape from, let's say, a kind of a burning oil rig, for obvious reasons. So you can see that, yeah, maybe there's some sort of applications on the horizon. But the biggest application is in this space, resources. Can AI guide our performance? Yes, it can. So this is your commercial opportunity. This is good spend, good development spend if you're a supplier, good procurement spend if you're actually buying. Something that's actually going to help our people to do the job. What might that look like? Well, this is a mock-up, courtesy of one of my colleagues, Nadia Parkinson, that we did, of how this might look for a new leader. So you have a chatbot, which you add into chat as a companion. And it says, hi, anything I can help you with? You say, okay, yeah, I'm going to have to give a difficult conversation to somebody. And it says, oh, sure, there's a bunch of stuff that might help you. There's this thing over here, that thing over there, that thing over there. What kind of conversation is it? You say, what's that kind of thing? And this is still quite primitive. This is pre-ChatGPT. And it says, oh, okay, there's some resources. And it bounces you off somewhere else. It's not a module. It's just like advice, might tell you how we do things in the organization, might be a short video you can watch, might be a kind of a simple model that you can apply, something you can print off and kind of actually use. And as somebody mentioned this morning, personalization comes into it as well. So it can complete some sort of personality profile, and it can tailor its language, it can tailor the resources that it uses, and it can give you really some quick, simple tips, the kind of stuff that you might get on Google if you've got a problem. And it can track as well. You can build this kind of stuff. It really helps people. There's some good research around. People will often, in some circumstances, prefer a chatbot like this because it never gets impatient. It's always available. It always gives you helpful stuff. And so that's a kind of an opportunity, but it's very different from often what we think about. So last couple of minutes, I want to show you a video of how all of this might come together. It's not my video, it's public domain, Cable Labs. Have a quick look at this.
School's awesome. We're always doing cool stuff like this. Like, did you know that dragonflies have been around for 300 million years? I just learned that. Whoa. Hey, us kids have minds like sponges. We're just waiting to soak up everything around us. We're naturally curious and love to dive in and figure out how things work. After all, it's what we're best at. You know, a true sign of intelligence is not knowledge, but imagination. I didn't say that. Albert did. Follow me. Of course, you can't see imagination, but you can see what happens when it's let out. You can explore anywhere you want. It'll take you places you only ever dreamed of. And help you meet new people from all over the world.
Where do you live?
Like my best friend Alice. She's from Australia. I think it's pretty early there, so she's probably sleeping.
Sydney, Australia is 19 hours ahead of San Francisco, California. Local time is 5:30 a.m.
Thought so. Thanks, Dot. That was Dot, my AI assistant. We've all got one. They go everywhere with us, helping us learn and explore.
Hey, Millie. I know you're busy, but your history project on Madame Curie is due in 17 hours. I'll remind you again later.
Okay. I don't really know what I'd do without her. Where was I? Oh yeah, learning and exploring. Sometimes the answers aren't right there in front of you. You have to dig a little. Look at things in different ways. Because there's usually more than one way to solve a problem.
Oh wow, it's a lot. Yeah, it's assembly.
And guess what? There will always be problems to be solved. Luckily, we're really good at that. My teacher, Mrs. Garcia, says it's good to take everything at your own speed. And don't be afraid to get things wrong once in a while. After all, mistakes are proof that you're trying. She says sometimes it just takes a little time before it all makes sense. I feel that way when it comes to math. But I am getting better though. I've still got loads to learn and ways to go because it takes a long time to get educated. Oh, that's cool. But I know that one day I'll be here, working, maybe even in a place like this. I don't really know what I want to be when I grow up. Perhaps that job doesn't even exist yet. Mrs. Garcia says that learning never really stops because life never stops teaching. That works for me because I'll never want to stop learning. I mean, why would you? No one knows what the world will really look like when I grow up. Definitely something more amazing than we've even got now.
So, it's a very upbeat, optimistic view of the future. If some of you think it's science fiction, bear in mind that both Facebook and Apple are shipping VR, AR headsets this year, I think. So this is going to become practically feasible. The question that I have, though, is about commercial opportunity. This looks amazing, doesn't it? Who's going to build it? Where's the investment going to come from for creating these amazing experiences that people can have? So I'm just going to finish with some very practical guidance. in terms of not wasting your money, you've basically got three options. If you're a learning professional who's wondering what you're going to be doing in future, well then designing experiences is going to be handmade pottery. You know, that craft will remain at the luxury end, at the exclusive end, creating amazing experiences for people, like the experience we have here today. That will stay, even though we could do it digitally. The second thing is a really good way to look at investment, whether you're investing as an organization building something or buying something. Think about performance guidance. Think about sat-nav for everything. So you have sat-nav in your car, massively improves your performance. Could you create sat-nav for everybody in every job so that organizations can cope with people popping in and out every 18 months because they have some kind of performance guidance system that tells them the best decisions to make at every point? But that's kind of different from just shuffling modules and content. And the bad option is, well, you can probably still make some money out of doing digital education. You can create cheaper, faster, kind of useless modules which people aren't consuming. And those will continue to be purchased for a while until this comes on stream. That's where your disruption will come from. You'll be pitching to some organization your learning and leadership modules, and somebody else will say, we have an app that just tells leaders what to do at every turn. And that's much more popular and more effective than, you know, trying to force your leaders to do this pathway or modules. So I'm going to finish on a question. Imagine you're offered the alternative between hearing President Obama, former President Obama, speak in person, live, and that's one option. Second option, seeing an AI-generated version of him on a video from a transcript of a speech he gave. Hands up, how many people would prefer the live version? Yeah, pretty much everybody, yeah? The content is the same. It's not, learning isn't about the content, learning is about the experience. So on that note, let me stop there, and thank you very much.